I'm gonna have to
bleeding
go
and
back.
bleeding and 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 bleeding. And I thought to myself, what is going on? Like, this is so weird. I'm like the to look like it is right now. Let's say in condition. It's $2,500. I said, okay. So on January 10th, 2023, I went to Pronuvo for a full body MRI, basically so I could be like, yeah, this is how healthy I am. And then I actually have to back it up. Because before the MRI, I've never talked about this on the internet, November 22nd, 2022, I started bleeding. Like a normal period. Like, not a big deal. The only problem is it never stopped. So I was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding.
That's a problem. Sorry, I kicked the camera. That's a problem. If it goes on for longer than 4 weeks, 10 days, that's a problem. Okay? It is not healthy. You then need to take time to probably get in touch. It depends on how your insurance works. If you have an insurance that requires a referral to a specialist, you would then need to speak with your primary care physician and let them know that you need a referral to an OBGYN or to your OBGYN in order to be seen for this unusual menstrual bleeding. This is educational information only, okay? This is not me acting as your provider. But this is what I would advise you to do if this were to happen. And I've had breakthrough bleeding, but when I was after my period and that alerted me to a problem, I immediately went to see somebody. I will, one day maybe I'll tell you that story. So this is why she does not give good advice at all, because she is not a healthcare provider whatsoever. She's just a regular MLM person who just happens to be a little bit high up her pyramid scheme, allegedly. So anyway, I would then say to anybody then, after 10 days, you need to see somebody. And like I said, depending on your insurance, you might have to go to your primary care first and then get the referral to the OBGYN because you thought it was menstrual bleeding. That makes sense. Or if you have a specialist, I would still get in touch with my primary care provider and then go see my OBGYN, whichever, even with a PPO. So, and if you live in, more countries that your country covers with healthcare, whichever the route is that takes you to see the specialist, that's what you need to do. Obviously, she let it go on for an extended period of time because she was happy about how thin she looked. So she wasn't very smart. I would never advise that to anybody. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 12, 20, 34, 54, 84, 104. I don't care. It's not normal.
And bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding.
It's not even cute.
And I thought to myself, what is going on? Like, this is so weird. I'm like the cycle girl of my friends. I'm like the person who's like, if you want to
something's happening. Something not right.
Ovulation. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, I don't know what's going on because I'm bleeding like crazy. And
ignoring
it was not
it.
just
Denial.
Like a little bit of
She's in
Kubler's
denial. Like still phase one on everything.
So I'd already done the full body MRI. Results took a long time. I'll talk about it in a second. But on January 16th, I took
because you need a physician to read them.
Leaders of mine, and maybe you've seen this on the internet, maybe you haven't. It was like this big Columbia Gate thing. People thought that I took these people to Columbia to put them in danger. No one was in danger except for, ironically, me. And I've never talked about this.
Well, then you put everybody else in danger.
People were trying to demonize me on the internet for a leadership retreat that people all signed waivers for, and people all knew what they were going into, and people all knew, hey, trust Jessie Lee. Whatever. But I was the person that the day I get there, the 16th of January, I have a conversation with two of my best friends, and I said, something is really wrong. I've been bleeding for months, but now I'm bleeding clots, and I guess I'll show a picture of it because I have photos. So I'll show you. It's kind of gross, right? And this wasn't like one.
That's usually a sign of some type of bleed. Upper bleed. Usually that dot too. That's like a bleed that's like been going on for an extended period of time and now clotting somewhere. So that might have actually, as a response to her, sorry, I should not show this gross picture. Let me play it along. Okay, now I'll stop. Sorry, that picture was just a little bit too much. I can think about the proximity between, obviously, the female anatomy and the colon. And if that large tumor were, taking shape, which it definitely was, then obviously other parts of her body might be responding to that cellular mutation. And therefore, as a response, it was causing inside of her female area to actually have a reaction to the tumor, therefore starting to cause these like massive clots inside of her with blood, because it was starting to show damage of organ systems. Even it doesn't necessarily have to be that one, but just the proximity. If it's true that it was only coming out of her female part, because she said she caught it in the cup. I have had people, and I don't want to get into graphics with much larger clots than that I've seen as a hospice nurse, and I won't even get into the story, because I can promise you that made that clot look like nothing. And that was obviously coming from the colon area, because the person had an upper GI bleed and it had been going on. It was getting, there was a backup behind it. And once that backup got freed, the clot came down. With hers, the fact that she went on also forever and said she was asymptomatic, and now she's saying she had symptoms, it just sort of shows the lack of dishonesty that this person has. And another reason why I personally would not trust any of the information that she has, or any advice that she has to have, whether for food or health, anything, because her stories are never straight. They're always just full of contradictions. So she's just a very it's kind of toxic, really.
Twice, this wasn't 3 times, this was multiple times a day. These gigantic clots of blood were coming out of me, and I was like, this is really bad, like something is very wrong. And I knew something was wrong, because I know that you're not supposed to have enormous clots of blood like this. So I'm texting my assistant, I'm like, as soon as I get back from Columbia, I've got to get to the doctor. There is something wrong. I'm bleeding extremely heavily, clots the size of the palm of my hand, multiple times a day.
Sorry.
So meanwhile, when I'm on this Columbia hike everyone's so worried about, the crazy thing is, you can ask anyone who's there.
Everyone thought you looked not well.
My entire outfit.
Everyone thought you didn't look good.
At the point where I'm like, well, I mean, screw it. It's like a normal thing that happens to everybody. So even though I'm bleeding all over the place, and everybody in Columbia, the guys and the girls, see me bleeding everywhere, I'm like, whatever. It's just menstrual blood. Like, who cares? No big deal. So then I get home. And January 23rd, the bleeding just still hasn't stopped. And I'm starting to get really anemic feeling. I'm getting really tired. I can tell I'm just losing weight.
I'm stopping for a moment, because somebody brought up a really good point, that they went out swimming in the middle of the night, and she says she's having blood the entire time. She did put her staff, not her staff, that's rude, her cohorts into possibly some trouble. If a shark had smelt that blood, I mean, they wouldn't have discerned whether the blood was coming from her or the person next to her. I think just jumping in the water in the middle of the night I wouldn't do it. And I live at the beach here in Virginia Beach. I grew up on the water. We never did that stuff. That was insane. You only do that stuff if you've been drinking all night, because it takes that type of crazy. She's just all over the place. I mean, gosh, caution, medical misinformation, not having a straight story, and contradictions constantly, and graphic medical trigger warnings.
Way too much blood. And when I look at photos from Columbia, which I can show you some of these, or some TikToks,
sickly,
or whatever, some screenshots, I'm starting to get really sunken in under my eyes. My face is getting really gaunt. I'm getting really skinny in January in Columbia. And I did notice I was looking pretty flippin' skinny, but I thought, I'm still pushing through. I'm still doing my thing. Like, I'll be fine. I'll go to the doctor when I get home.
Sorry about that.
So I go in January 23rd, 2023, and this is where I go to the ER for bleeding. And in the ER for bleeding, he's like, I don't see anything wrong. Everything looks fine. Go get an ultrasound. I'm like,
unfortunately, ERs are not really set up to deal with sort of what they would have maybe possibly seen I keep forgetting this dumb microphone, as a chronic type of condition like this bleeding. They would think that you would go see an OBGYN. Emergency rooms are really for acute medical crises. I mean, this had been going on for an extended period of time, Jessie Lee. It wasn't like you suddenly got your arm broken or your hand severed or a heart attack. Those are the types of things that emergency departments are set up to take care of, like emergent conditions, not an extended period of time bleeding that needed to be followed up with a primary care or with a OBGYN. So already she does not know how to use the healthcare system. And this is why she gets angry, because she's going to the wrong place to take care of something. So that's not where you go, folk. I'm just going to let you know. You're going to be highly disappointed and you're just going to get a bill. They're not going to be able to do what you need for them to do. Just saying.
Okay, so we were able to get next day into an ultrasound for the bleeding. They did a normal ultrasound on the exterior. They did an intravaginal ultrasound as well. All the results, which again I can show you, look normal, except they said, well, you have thickened endometrium. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, could be nothing, could be fetal remains. I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
And the thing is that I don't think the tech would have given them any type of response, because whoever was the physician who ordered the ultrasound would be the only person who would have the prerogative to give Jessie Lee Ward the results. And I can't imagine. So just again, caution. An ultrasound tech who gives any type of indication of what they're seeing as they look at the results would lose their job, because they are not the person who has ordered the ultrasound. Whoever she had as the physician who ordered the ultrasound for her, so maybe from the emergency room, they got, instead of it being an emergent ultrasound, they were able to get her a diagnostic ultrasound the following day, and they were no way that tech gave her. So when she talks about the tech, this tech, whoever it is, they'd be out of a job. They would know better. Ask Julie Joe. They don't do that. You'd get in trouble. Has to be the doctor. So again, Jessie Lee Ward, what are you talking about? Let's go. Oh, sorry.
What do we do next? They said, well, we can't really see anything. You should go do a biopsy. I'm like, wow, a biopsy. Like, okay. So this is where if you haven't already been frustrated in this video with the medical system or whatever, this is where I just start to get like very frustrated, because this ultrasound of my uterus and of my ovaries and of my reproductive organs should have seen cancer. I'm just going to tell you, okay?
Well, unless you have
this
it there.
This should have been seen to begin with, but whatever. The problem is so many of these...
Now, Jessie Lee, do you have it in now your uterus? Is this why you're wanting to get your eggs taken care of? Because that's a whole different story. Because obviously nothing was indicating, and obviously an ultrasound is not the type of test that you would take. They may see something unusual in there, like a tumor of some type, to get biopsied. But yeah, she's not got... And, you know, she's talking about being frustrated, but she let things go on for months. She doesn't have a primary care provider. And so all the steps that she would need to take to try to find out what's going on, she is now in just absolute panic mode, trying to find answers and just not knowing how to navigate it. Because she doesn't have a primary care physician, it seems, helping her, except this biohack doctor, who isn't a real doctor. It's just somebody who's just somebody trying to sell garbage, which she'll talk about in a little bit.
practitioners and doctors, which I'm not knocking doctors, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, is they look at your body as these little tiny parts and pieces. They don't look at stuff from a holistic entire body point of view.
Oh yeah, because your biohack is so fucking good.
You'll hear why this is such a big deal. So they do 4 biopsies.
I'm salty.
Super painful, by the way. I'm like, wow, okay. Hello, uterus. Not my favorite thing.
Biopsies are the only way to look at anything at a cellular level. It's the only way to find out if something like cancer is going on, Jessie Lee, in this respect, because they weren't having anything, coming and predominantly showing up on this ultrasound. So it's the only way to do it. So it doesn't sound like you're being failed at all. It sounds like they're trying to find out what was going on. So it just happened that you told people that it was coming from your, vaginal area. So that's what they're eliminating first. So you never mentioned anything as far as happening from your colon area. Colorectal. How about that for politeness? So I just think that she is frustrated because she's not understanding anything about the healthcare system. And obviously, as I spoke about with these guidelines, she was too young by about 10 years.
I have gross photos of that too. I don't know.
Lovely. Lovely.
Maybe I knew that I was going to document all this for YouTube for you guys at some point. So photos of the biopsies. Great. And everything.
There we go.
Normal, guys.
There's more trigger warnings.
There's nothing wrong. I don't know. Let's put you on progesterone to stop the bleeding. Let's put you on testosterone to stop the bleeding. I'm like, I don't want hormones. I'm just not a big hormone person. I don't like birth control. I don't like any of this stuff. I don't want a shot of progesterone or progesterone pills or whatever you're going to do to stop the bleeding. Like, can we figure out what's wrong?
Says the lady who will stick coffee in her rectum. Just saying. She'll stick coffee in her rectum, but she doesn't want to do these progesterones. This is what they're thinking, because so far, you've never probably mentioned that the only thing that you've been eating is meat for the last, and drinking prove-it ketones. So they don't know that you had a garbage diet at this point. And you're saying nothing coming out the backside. So it's not giving signs and symptoms of colon cancer from your description at this moment. So I'm not expecting, I don't know what you think people are going to do. They have to do it bit by bit. Rule things out, it's cold.
Between the time that I went for this ultrasound, because then on February 1st, which of course was a week later, I get back this. These are the results of the full body MRI. So from January 10th to February 1st is how long it took for Pernuvo to get the results back. And immediately said what all of you can see, which is that there are abnormal findings. You can see the circle around my stomach. You can see the circle around my cecum area, which is where your large and small intestine meet. And it said I immediately need to get medical attention. So I'll never forget.
This is why you don't go to some off-brand place to get an MRI and you go through the proper channels, because look how long they took, a month, to alert her about some pretty significant findings. I can promise you, had that been taken at an doctor's, through an order from a physician and taken at a diagnostic center, they would have had her immediately in their office the next day, or talking to her over the phone, or making some. Usually they try to bring you in with somebody with you in order to deliver what is very bad news. And so this company just sending it this way, I mean, this just shows the lack of professionalism on this biohacking company's part. I'm sorry she got these results, but just this just shows you, if you're not following how they want you to do it within the insurance system in this country, you're going to be butting up against walls like this, like Jessie Lee Ward is.
Forget going to the gym that day. I'm crying in the gym.
Yeah, I'd be too. Nobody's even talked to you about it. That's pretty bad.
And they're like, "What's wrong? Why are you so upset? It could be nothing." I'm like,
No,
it's like when that it's not nothing. And
people stop saying that to people. That's just stop
like,
it.
everyone
That's
around you is trying to make it seem like, oh, it's going to be perfectly fine. I said it's my older brother who's like, maybe it's just an infection. This could be an infection. I'm like, I don't think I have an infection, right? Like, I know something is going on. As soon as I see this MRI, like,
that's why you wanted the full body MRI, is because you knew something was going on. So I think telling people otherwise, again, Jessie Lee Ward, you're being very disingenuous. You just didn't want to follow proper channels. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean that. Stop. Let's go.
I'm immediately overwhelmed with emotions. I'm like, what is going on? And I sent it to the doctors that I was working with in the past and I'm no longer currently working with. And they've said, hey, well,
are these the biohacking folk? Because, sorry, if that's the biohacking folk, those are not physicians or medical doctors, okay? So I would take the word doctor when she's referring to any of these individuals extremely loosely. And she doesn't clarify that. And that, to me, is extremely problematic because she is blurring the lines between an actual medical physician and just this biohacking moron that she picked up from Tony Robbins. I mean, and the fact that these folk just sell all of this is the latest fad and she's fallen into it. And if it causes her to become very ill in the near future, I don't care what results she's getting at the moment. I think she's just having a stabilization before a great fall. I think she's going to, she's going to come crashing pretty hard because I'm sorry, Jizz Girl is not going to do it for you. You're too late. Your lifestyle things that or whatever led to this diagnosis, I don't think helped by the carnivore meat and those ketones that you've been drinking. I just don't think that aided in keeping you with a healthy colon. It doesn't sound like you like vegetables. You said some fruit. It sounds like you had no fiber. Colon loves some fiber, girl. God, hot mess. Giving advice. Just take this as a cautionary tale of what not to do.
Well, we did also order you that blood test, that Gallery Grail blood test, which I had taken. It's another about $3,000 blood test. It's a pre-cancer screening test. I highly recommend it to everybody. And I said, okay, great. Well, I guess we wait for the Grail test to come back. In the meantime, what were my symptoms? This is where I don't mean to
blood clots in your
I didn't have symptoms.
Cervix next to your colon.
And I guess
the tiredness, the fatigue.
Well, a lot of us are tired because we're all running.
No, the weight loss because your colon was.
I had no blood and stool.
I'm sorry. The weight loss from having no absorption in your colon of nutrients. So that wasn't because you were eating that meat. And the meat was probably blocking up behind the colon, making, just sitting there like a lump because you had this tumor that was probably. I think she says that she had bad stools too. So I think the fact that she keeps saying she has no symptoms is not actually factual. She talks about feeling tired. She's had massive weight loss. Everybody said she looked like she was on Ozempic. Even I thought she looked like, because she looked so gaunt and unwell. She didn't look like she was taking any type of health or fitness journey. I'm sorry. I wouldn't agree. And then she said she was having clots out of her bleeding forever in a day. I mean, if that's not already like 3 or 4 red flags of a health issue, then you seriously need to go back to some biology classes. Every single one of you who would think that this sounded reasonable from this person, because it sounds like just wow. And she wants to call herself a health and wellness person. Wouldn't listen to her for my life. My life.
I had no.
You'd be dead.
No stomach pains, no issues with anything. Nothing. I thought I was in the best shape of my life. I thought that my body was crushing. I thought that I was basically
then it's not crushing necessarily.
An example of health, the person I've always wanted to be in every aspect of my life, with everything from spirituality, finances, emotions, mental, etc. And here I am staring at this MRI like, how is this even possible? And so that happened, and then I said, okay, well, up next, I've got this trip to the Bahamas. And at the very beginning of February 7th, February 2nd, I flew to the Bahamas. I had earned a free trip with my company that I'm with.
Trigger warning.
I had taken
Stolen husband
on a private jet with me
from
to the
a
Bahamas.
wife with children.
Hunky dory, woo, woo, woo. Everyone's in a good mood. I'm in a good mood. And I did feel tired there and a little bit agitated and whatever, just because I'm being pulled a bunch of different directions, being the top in the company. And I felt pretty okay, though. I look at photos, and again, I'm very skinny. If I look at my face, I go, oof, he looked sick. And I just pushed through. And then on the flight back from Bahamas on February 6th, I'm cheating again, February 6th, I get a message from two of the doctors that were working with me with prior history. And they said, we need to get on a Zoom call whenever you get a chance. We got some test results back. And I mean, I knew. You know, it's like, you know, when someone says, hey, I got bad news, you're like, oh. So I knew. So we actually flew back to Kentucky on the jet before flying to Texas to drop some people off. And I said, I want to know right away. I'll call you up when I land in Kentucky. And we clear customs in Kentucky, and I take the Zoom call.
Those guys didn't expect that. They didn't anticipate that with such a young woman.
With the screenshot of the Gallery Grail test, which... You know, Tony Robbins says in his book, Life Force, if you have the resources to get a full body MRI and the resources to do this Gallery Grail test, you should. And I'm glad I did, but...
Tony Robbins is a charlatan who is like literally almost like a high school dropout. So don't listen to anything that garbage individual has to say. That's just what I think. That's my opinion, okay? Don't come after me, Tony Robbins. It's my opinion. I'm allowed to have one, just like you're allowed to have an opinion. That's my opinion of you. I think you scam people out of money. You garbage. Full body MRI. It's because Tony Robbins got like gigantism. So he probably taking a peek seeing how his pituitary's doing. And then, these fact that these biohacking doctors just took that amount of time to come back with those results. I mean, that's just really bad. And this Grail, just get some blood work. Jeez. And have a doctor. Start earlier than you think. Start taking your blood pressure, everybody. Wow, this is wild. Let's keep going.
Of course, then, still this isn't a diagnosis, but it comes back positive with a signal for colon/rectum cancer. And that was when just the sobbing starts, right?
Well, of course.
You can't really describe that feeling. It feels like you get hit by a bus or a train, or your whole world kind of stops because you realize in that moment that nothing is okay. And I went back on the jet, and I walked straight to the back in the back room because the jet has several rooms in it. And I told my boyfriend who was with me, and we just went to the back, and I just sobbed in his arms. He sobbed in my arms for probably about 20 minutes. My best friend happened to be on the jet, too. It was her first flight on a jet. A great way to commemorate this, right? And I tell her, like, hey, I remember saying to her, I said, I might be really, really sick.
Wrong time for the brags, Jessie Lee.
So we were crying.
Wrong time for the brags.
Gathered myself emotionally after about 20, 30 minutes, go back out, spend the time with everyone else in the jet, but then I just knew. And I knew it was going to be the beginning of this journey of just step by step by step. I never thought it'd be the way it is now, which I know is why I'm going to do as many of these videos as possible, because I don't just want to give it to you all at once. It's too much for any one person to probably handle in like a 5-hour video or something, but I realized really in that moment that this was super serious. And so then I talked to those two doctors, and they just weren't rushing anything. And for me, when it's my health, it's my life. It's like what matters when you realize your life is in danger? Nothing except your life. It was like, oh, we'll call doctors. We'll get everything handled. They put together this plan. This is really where that happened. They said, we're going to put together this medical plan for you, and we're going to help you as much as possible right away. I said, put the protocol together. You know, give me peptides that boost your immune system and all, like whatever they were telling me, because I really believe in this peptide.
It's not a medical plan. It's not a plan of care. It's not a treatment plan. Sorry. This is where they should have said, we don't have the expertise to help somebody with this type of results. At this time, I would recommend that you actually get in touch with an oncologist immediately to have this followed up, because it could be extremely easy to treat if caught early enough, or it could be deadly if not caught in time. So I think that this was just, the peptide. Seriously, Jessie Lee? Really? The first thing you thought when you saw colon cancer was some peptide therapy?
Step by step by step. I never thought it'd be the way it is now, which I know that's why I'm going to do as many of these videos as possible, because I don't just want to give it to you all at once. It's too much for any one person to probably handle in like a 5-hour video or something. But I realized really in that moment that this was super serious. And so then I talked to those 2 doctors, and they just weren't rushing anything. And for me, when it's my health, it's my life. It's like, what matters when you realize your life is in danger? Nothing except your life. It was
Exactly.
like, we'll call doctors. We'll get everything handled. They put together this plan. This is really where that happened. They said, we're going to put together this medical plan for you, and we're going to help you as much as possible right away. I said, put the protocol together. Give me peptides that boost your immune system and all, like whatever they were telling me, because I really believe in this peptide stuff. I did not even look at the invoice, guys, until I had already said, run it. Just run it. Like, I feel like I'm fighting for my life. Just run it. Turns out,
This, and I don't remember if I've recorded this part or I'm going to turn this around. This is almost unethical on the part of these 2, these I don't know who they are, whoever these supposed individuals were, not medical doctors. It is not a medical plan because they have no medical licensure, okay? So, again, caution. Jessie Lee Ward is talking about getting just some nonsense from some individuals who run this biohacking, who ethically should have said, we cannot handle this. This is beyond any type of scope of practice that we have. I would strongly suggest that you follow up with an oncologist, which is a cancer physician, and have this looked at, because this could be quite serious. And we just don't have the expertise or the know-how or the ability to really stage the cancer, which is huge. That's a huge thing. And you just don't look at, she talks about staging in a few minutes. You don't just look at the picture and stage it from there. There is so much involved in staging that comes from the actual biopsies and proximity of where the disease spread, how many lymph nodes are involved. There is a lot that is involved in actually staging cancer. So that's a whole nother process. And it actually takes the oncologist quite some time to come with the response for staging. So you just can't look at something and stage. It doesn't happen that way. So, and again, this is not a medical plan. This is not a treatment plan. This is not a plan of care. This is some nonsense that these individuals who were almost complicit in this disease progressing further, because they didn't honestly tell her that she needed to see somebody who specialized in this. It is really bad. It's really bad. And I would recommend that any of you who think that these people are legitimate physicians or doctors and have your best interests at heart, I want you to listen to this right now. And I want you to take this as a cautionary tale, because what they did to this person is so horrific and just undescribable, and just part of this continuing scam that happens in the multi-level marketing and all this mindset and life coaching and personal development and all of this stuff. That is horrific, horrific. So I want you to take this as a cautionary tale. I want you to see how they bleed her with money. And then I want you to think about the things that she has been saying about the physicians at MD Anderson. It's just garbage. Absolute garbage. And anybody who's like showing her a great deal of compassion or, wanting to say something about the healthcare system after listening to this just absolute nonsense from somebody who doesn't know what she's doing, listening to a bunch of other people who are just unethical and have no scruples and have no ability to even say when they are no longer really able to care for somebody, I think is horrific. I'm really salty.
They ran it. They overpriced things by about 12 times. They also included an $11,000 doctor fee from somebody I'd already been working with for 9 months. And it was $55,000. I can show you the invoice. And before anything even came, I went, you know what?
So,
we don't
just
even have an actual diagnosis. I don't want a product anymore. I want to talk to an oncologist. I want to see a doctor before we make any medical decisions moving forward. And they said, oh, we can't do that. Like, that's against our business model. Meanwhile, I'd already referred countless people to their clinic, which is very expensive. They had already made a ton of money off of me, and now immediately, boom, this is one of the first times I went, oh, you care way more about my money than me surviving this. And so I severed the relationship with that doctor.
Can you see what she just said?
I don't use the name.
$440,000 is what she just said there. It was like, let me try to go back. Okay. Yeah, it's getting so bad. I paid $440,000 last year. Told him no more. And there's some type of, yeah, I literally feel stuck. But also, no, I'm not. We got you. So somebody paid. Is that her? Is that her who's paid him $400? Oh no, but she said, but times 12. No, somebody else paid him $440,000, and then she talks about the doctors being chemo pimps. She said the same order, probably like 6 to 8. 12 times. She's starting to see the scam here. It's like in front of her face, and she's seeing it, but she still associates with all of these people probably, as far as the people that recommended this, because she's never going to say anything about Tony Robbins that's bad. Sorry, it's just, that's really bad. That's just unconscionable.
I don't use the name, I don't tag him, I don't say anything, whatever. That's the truth of all of it. Here's the invoice.
Because he's a fraud, and a scammer, and a grifter, and a charlatan, and a scoundrel.
So, from there,
allegedly,
on February 10th, so February 6th, the results came back. February 10th, finally I get a consult with a GI doctor, which I know might sound like, finally, it's only 4 days. All we were doing was calling doctors. We were calling every single doctor's office in the area to try to get some kind of meeting with somebody who would listen to me and say, this is what's going on.
Forward you to urgency.
So we have a consult with the GI doctor on the 10th, and then I'm getting frustrated because it's like every day that goes on, it feels like 10 days. Like it's another day I'm waking up miserable, upset, sad, scared, defeated, right? And then it's another day, and another day, and another day. So finally, February 16th, I reach out to my friend, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who I would like to give a big shout out to. Y'all should follow her. She's amazing. She's a lot of very high profile people's doctor. She also does a lot of peptide stuff, and she's got her own meal plan.
Okay, that sounds like absolute garbage too. And obviously, why are you going to a GI doctor when you need to actually have an appointment with an oncologist? You needed to make a call to an oncology and let them know that you had these results. But they probably didn't. No, they didn't probably. You got these results from some illegitimate type of business, so it's hard to then get anybody to see you. In the healthcare system in this country, especially post-pandemic era, is extremely backed up because people obviously were staying away due to concerns about catching something that was supposedly going around that we all know about. So there's all sorts of issues going on. So just now she's got the panic set in after these people sat on this information for about a month. It's just terrible. And the fact that she even, please never listen to these people. Any of that goop, any of it, it's garbage. That's why I'm out here trying to just put some basic health information. It's not sexy. It doesn't make me any money. It's very, very just kind of grandma's advice sometimes. But it is much better than any of the fuck is they going on about? Pardon my French, the peptides. Sorry, I work in a Catholic place. I shouldn't be cussing, but this is terrible. Jesus Christ. Sorry, we got like 12 more minutes of this. Just, oh my God, just the story and how not to take care of your manager healthcare by Jessie Lee Ward, and how to lose a bunch of money.
I
She's
texted her
angry
and
at the
just
wrong
said,
people.
hey, can I ask you some questions? And I just asked her super open, super honestly. I said, I'm working with this doctor. Here's all this stuff that's happening. I think I might have colon cancer. I'm pretty sure I do. Do you mind if I kind of talk to you? And she like calls right away. And she's like, we've got to get you in for a colonoscopy. I'm like, I know, but we've spent the last 7 days now calling for colonoscopies. The next available colonoscopy in the state of Texas is the end of April. Nobody's listening to me about how I have this MRI. What good's an MRI? Nobody's listening about the Gallery Grail test. They don't think it's a real test. The medical system is so corrupt, right? I've got these 2 cancers.
How dare she? How dare she? You know why? It's because you bought garbage from an illegitimate source. So don't try to throw it back on the actual medical community, Jessie Lee Ward. The garbage is old Tony Robbins and his life farce. Okay? That's garbage. So I'm sorry. You just can't demand that people listen to you and then say that the system is corrupt when you have done nothing. As far as, if you want to go off and see the charlatans, then you're going to get what you expect. Don't then come after the regular medical community and get angry about it. God, what just a nightmare to deal with.
Signals, and they're telling me that it's no big deal, that I can basically ignore it. Oh, we'll take you non-emergency at the end of April. And Lord knows, maybe I would have been dead by the end of April. You have no idea. And so extremely corrupt. Or you're too young for a colonoscopy is another one, because if you don't know, 30.
Absolutely. And I have the guideline to it here too. They're getting younger and younger. So yes, Jessie Lee Ward, you were an outlier. You were definitely young to have colon cancer, and yes, it is a flaw in the system. My cousin went for an entire year being told she had hemorrhoids when she was telling him she was bleeding from her rectal area, not to be graphic, and it finally somebody listened enough to get her to have a colonoscopy, because yes, it's extremely unusual. They used to think it was a disease of old people, and I don't think you think of yourself as old. So don't be angry about it. It just happens to be a fact. Okay? You should have been letting people know you had a trash diet and you were drinking trashy ultra-processed drinks and, and whatever else. So yes, unfortunately, you were having, and you had no primary care who knew anything about your history. So you're just probably calling and saying just crazy random stuff to people. It's not how it's done. God. Anyway, I just can't. She's so bad. She's so bad. Please don't listen to this person. I know. I'll get 1,000 views. She'll get 2,000, 100, and I don't have any type of following. But I promise you, I make way more sense than this person ever has.
34 years old.
I just don't make the money because I'm more ethical.
February 16th.
Ethical. There's a difference when you have ethics.
She calls the #1 GI doctor here in the great state of Texas.
Where are the oncologists?
Says, I have a friend. She needs colonoscopy emergency. She has an MRI that's abnormal, and she has a Gallery Grail test, which says that she is positive for colon cancer.
Nobody cares about the Gallery Grail test. I'm glad it did catch it, but it's not part of the practice. Sorry.
She
doesn't even know what a medical protocol is.
We'll never forget this. I go in, he comes in early to take me before all his other patients. I wake up, we're talking entrepreneur stuff. He says, you know what, I think your brother might be right. Maybe
why don't you just give it a break for once?
About it. Wake up, and I knew right away. I knew it was cancer immediately. And this was the day of my diagnosis, February 17th, 2023.
Because you've been having symptoms.
I knew because I wake up and I can hear the person with the sheet over here being told, everything's okay, everything looks good, no polyps, we'll see you in a couple of years. I hear the person behind the sheet over here when I wake up.
Sounds like a HIPAA violation.
Oh, Mr. Blah, 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 2 polyps, no big deal, we took them out, not a problem, see you in 2 years. And then I see my doctor walk by really fast right in front of me, and the nurse comes in and she says, oh, Dr. Brown is meeting with another patient. He's busy. He'll be out as soon as possible, but we're going to go ahead and put you in this room over here. He'll meet you there as soon as he can.
Jessie Lee, if you had such faith about that Grail test or whatever the heck, I can't even remember it because it's nothing important to me, and I certainly wouldn't use it. It's not even a basic guac, a stool test. I think that you already knew. So you knew. And yes, those bays and those curtains and the PACUs, post-anesthesia care recovery, are very thin-walled. So that is unfortunate, because that sounds like terrible HIPAA violations on all counts. I hope they didn't use anybody's name, but they probably did. God, that sounds not very good. Anyway, let's go.
And I'm like, I know it's cancer.
Well, you knew that already. I just said that. Don't repeat yourself.
And
it's all done.
We walked in there, and
I need to write a paper.
And I knew right away. He took out his images of the MRI, which I can show you guys, and her colonoscopy, and he said,
See, this is the difference. And she's trying to be all talking about the medical system being corrupt. So we have these people who, you know, these great peptide guys, the biohackers, the things that she really believes in, taking almost a month to get in touch with her. And then they came up with a very expensive plan. And I saw it on another channel last night. She spent 60 grand in just, you know, garbage IV stuff. Just a bunch of garbage, absolute garbage. So anyway, that was her choice. It's her money, but don't be mad at other people. So the minute she goes in immediately for this colonoscopy, the physician goes to sit down to give her the news. So it's straight away. He doesn't leave her hanging at all. The minute she can finally get in for the colonoscopy, because she is an outlier, and it's submitted, and she, you know, went through the ultrasound, but then I don't know what happened after, you know, they were not finding anything, and obviously she knew something else was going on. And I don't know where, she just didn't seem to have a main doctor. She's going to random specialists and not actually an oncologist. So, and then the biohackers, and just misusing her money, and so forth, and not obviously following any type of, you know, protocol for healthcare.
Gosh, his bedside manner is great. He just puts his hands on his knees and he looks at me and he's like, Jessie Lee, I wish I were telling you that 99% I'm looking at colon cancer, but I'm not. I'm 100% looking at colon cancer. You need to have surgery. You need to take care of this. This is advanced and it looks weird. It looks strange. And that's when I started realizing gene mutations and all this kind of whatever. And I just said, okay. And I knew, because like I told you, and I just get up and I walk outside and he's walking me to the car. My sister Carissa had come to pick me up from the colonoscopy. And
March?
I don't know why I was going, not anybody else, but it was Carissa. And
it's been going on.
I get in the front door right before I'm about to get into my car. I said, hey, I'm just wondering, what stage do you think this is? And he said, honestly, I'd say at least stage 3, which is like, because I'm like, all right, okay, it's cancer, like stage 1. And there's no good cancer, so like, please don't misunderstand me, but.
And I can't remember if I went over this point earlier about the staging. That was very nice that the physician walked her to the car. He could only give educated idea as to which stage he thought he had seen. This was prior to surgery. This is just based on what the results were of that colonoscopy. And I did always want to point out that notice that physician gave her the news and results of her colonoscopy on that day in order for her to start getting the ball rolling to get to the next part, which is surgery. He didn't take any time. He probably had to finish a case, and then once that was completed, and even maybe between cases, came out and spoke to her. She even says he walked her to her car and so forth. And the difficulty is obviously he's not an oncologist. He's obviously, what he does is the colonoscopies. So that's why you would not have been able to kept him as a physician. But also, I'm glad he had a nice bedside manner. I also wanted to say about the staging again is that you actually have to look at a lot of different pieces in order to stage cancer. It's got a lot to do with the stage. It also mentions some other numbers to do with, and letters to do with lymph nodes, if there's any other organs that are involved, and so on and so forth. So it actually can take an extensive amount of time. It's often trying to find the primary site of the cancer. So there's a lot involved in staging cancer. It's not just something you could just kind of say off the top of your head. So anyway, that's kind of how that works. It's a lot more complex. So it's always funny when people ask, what stage am I at? You really have to look at a lot before you can just stage someone's cancer. Just saying.
Even stage 3, I'm like, oh no, so it spread somewhere, but maybe it's okay, so it's spread like nearby or something. Like maybe this will be okay, like it's no big deal. And then I had my first CT scan on so then on this 20th, so February 17th was colonoscopy and diagnosis. February 20th, I had my first consultation with my surgeon, Dr. Macaluso, going over the results of the colonoscopy. February 22nd was my first CT scan. February 23rd, I went to another second opinion with Dr. Salgado at Southwestern, Texas Southwestern, or UT Southwestern here in Dallas. That was an amazing hospital. I really like that doctor, by the way. Kind of wish I had used him. But anyway, February 25th, so I was able to get the next available surgery, which was February 25th, and that is...
Then why didn't you? If you were impressed and you felt that you had good rapport with that specific physician, then why didn't you stay with that physician? I mean, this is where Jessie Lee just leaves out, I think, sometimes some really important details in part of her cancer journey. Why didn't you stick with this physician? Obviously, was it because he was just the second opinion doctor? I don't know. Try not to get too salty on her. It's getting late. I need to wrap this video up. My lighting has changed, and I need to get some things done. So I apologize for all that. I had to take a break and charge up my battery for my camera. Anyway, let me get going. We just have a few minutes left to finish, and the first part I already uploaded. This is going to hopefully just go into part 2.
Is when I had my resection surgery. So these next images are pretty graphic and gross and disgusting, but before I tell you about that, I have to tell
I'm
you
glad she's giving us a trigger warning.
The Columbia trip and the bleeding and everything. So I get into surgery, I'm wheeled in, and I'm chatting with the nurses, and I just said, hey, just so you know, I've been bleeding for 4 months. I've been bleeding since November 22nd. November, December, February, November.
Hold on. We're back to the bleeding. Sorry. I just have to... I did not remember that we were going back to the bleeding. So... why are you involving the nurses in telling us about your bleeding? Why aren't you telling your physicians about the bleeding? Is it because you've... then get a female physician if you feel more comfortable speaking to physicians that are female, then try to find those doctors. I mean, I don't know. We nurses, we have to hear everything, I promise you. It's just wild. 4 months of bleeding.
December, January, February, 4 full months this time.
Says Miss Asymptomatic Jessie Lee Ward. I had no symptoms, she said.
I said I'm bleeding a lot, at least once a week. The whole day will be gigantic clots. And so I'm just letting you know at some point, since I'm here, and I don't think I use menstrual cups, by the way, just like maybe FYI, you should all use them. Throw away your tampons and your pads, thanks, chemicals. But anyway, I said, I'm probably going to bleed all over the place. And it's like a lot of blood. And she said, oh, honey, don't worry about it. Periods are totally normal. Everybody should talk about them more often. And I'm like, I'm not like nervous about my period. I'm just letting you know you might be changing a massacre multiple times a day. And she's like, don't worry about it, sweetheart. It's okay. We're used to it. We're nurses. I was like, all right, cool. So get wheeled into surgery. I go back, and here's kind of the crazy thing. So, have surgery that morning, had some amazing people fly in. You can see a photo of everybody who was at my bedside after the surgery. It was pretty amazing. But the craziest thing of all of this, I'll leave it here, and then I'll
just
continue in the next one. So make sure you're subscribed.
I know I'm frowning when I'm listening because I already saw my first video. I'm just
going on. The bleeding immediately stopped. And if you look at, stand up, if you look at uterus, organs, reproductive organs, and you look at the cecum, you look at where your large intestine, your small intestine, your appendix, etc. meets, these two giant organ bodies, they touch. And
I think she was a little high for her uterus, by the way. Just saying.
If that just ultrasound rep or the OBGYN I went to that was highly recommended would have taken the imaging and gone like this, or paid attention to what was pushing on my uterus just like this, they would have seen it. They would have known, boom, immediately in January, something is wrong. Something is going on. This is not normal behavior. Because as soon as that tumor came out, which graphic images I can show you, my bleeding stopped. I've had a normal cycle ever since then. It was because of the tumor. And then I'll leave you with this, and we'll kind of continue onward with this in regards to what I'm doing for healing and how everything's been. And if you think I've even started anything, there's a lot we've come.
I think I spoke about it earlier that possibly the tumor was affecting the response inside of her womb, like causing, clots to happen. So I don't think it was necessarily, for a menstrual cycle reason. I think it's more of a, just part of the cancer process. It just was taking place in the uterus. That's just what I'm thinking. I don't think whether she was having, regular menstrual cycles in there or not, I'm not sure. So I just don't think the blood was coming from like that particular reason. Unless this just I just don't think so. I think it was a different disease process happening. Not a normal process.
Shout out
for
to
reproductive
Carissa.
reasons.
She chronicled this. She's got all of the information for insurance purposes because they are saying this is a pre-existing condition, which is pretty crazy. But on March 1st, my pathology came back.
Pathology.
And that was when we found out. And that was when I was stage 4.
Okay, see, she talked about being staged.
The cancer had not only been a tumor here in my down here by my cecum, in the large intestine, small intestine area, etc. It had metastasized to local lymph nodes. 26 of 30 lymph nodes had cancer in them. And then the reason it was stage 4 is not because of the lymph nodes, but because it had metastasized to lymph nodes in my trachea, my neck, and also my stomach.
Right, it had gone distal.
Praise God, it is not distal in any of my organs. My immune system started to kick on, which I'll talk about more in some further videos, which is...
I just want to point out the colon is an organ. So when she says it's not in any organs, I think what she means is it has not been in any other organs as of yet, other than the colon. Because obviously it had a massive resection because there was an extremely large tumor in there. So I think she misspoke. But I wanted to clarify that. Sorry, I keep leaning the camera. The microphone for some reason. Jeez, I'm the worst creator.
It's really good. I'm really positive about this, and I just want to share this entire journey because I want people to know what to look for, what works, maybe what doesn't work, maybe what's going on with your life, etc., and takes things very seriously. Cancer is... It's not for another video probably, but it's the most humbling journey I've ever been on. It has made me realize so much more who's real, who's not. It's been amazing to see people who are so supportive. It's also amazing to see people who still have so much hate toward me for whatever. It's been an amazing, incredible, eye-opening, revolutionary last couple of months, and I want to keep documenting this for you. And I have so much more to take you through, everything from medical things that I've done, treatments that I've done, scans that I've done, places I've been, whatever. I want to take you through all of it, because it doesn't start just with diagnosis. It starts with diagnosis, but it certainly doesn't end there. And I hope, if nothing else, it gives some people like you hopefully a lot of hope. And I guess I can leave it with one more crazy thing, because I know you'll want to come back. At that time, I was also told that I was not going to see Christmas. So here I am, basically in July 2023. Hopefully I don't look like somebody to you that is going to be dead in the next 4 months. But I was told October, definitely not making it to Christmas. And so just if you're struggling or battling or fighting, or someone you love is, I would just ask you to maybe share it with them. Share just this last part with them, and you can share more with them. But don't give up hope. Your mindset is super strong as long as you keep it strong. You can fight, and you can heal, and you can do this. And just because somebody gives you a life expectancy, it doesn't mean that it's accurate. And something that I loved that a German doctor of mine said is, he said, "I'm good, but I'm not God." And I think there's too many people out there, especially doctors out there, who really truly play God. And just because they know standard of care is chemotherapy, surgery, chemotherapy, and or radiation, it doesn't mean it's the only way. And so I hope I bring you guys some hope. I hope I have given you a lot of information today to maybe think about. And thanks for subscribing and following along. That's just video one. I have a lot more to say, and I will. So I love you. I appreciate you. I'm Jessie Lee. You can also call me Boss Lee. And this is step one of the cancer journey. And I hope you end up enjoying this series a lot.
Have you considered going solar in Virginia but afraid of the huge price tag attached?
Sorry, I'll definitely want to try to cut that one out. Okay, I just wanted to let old Jessie Lee finish out, speaking there. Let me try to just minimize whatever that is. Okay, you're just going to see probably my dog on the screen so we can keep the sound recording going. So anyway, actually, let me just open this and then we can just actually just see her looking like this for the moment. How about that? Okay. All right, that looks better. Okay, so just to finish out on this terrible video, which just basically kind of underscored where she is uneducated in how the healthcare system works. She is really only educated in the world of MLM products, finding the type of supposed, I guess, health mentors of people like Tony Robbins and so forth. So I just think, and then she showed that somebody had said that they spent $440,000 on using the biohacking services of the names that she didn't mention who they were, but I'm sure it wouldn't take much investigating to find out exactly what company it is that she was recommended to, because I'm sure it's one that's used by every one of these folks like Ed Milet and Brendan Burchard and Tony Robbins and whoever the rest of that schemy, grifty group are. She talked about the cancer being a humbling journey. I mean, I think it is for most people. Whether it has been for Jessie Lee Ward, I'm really not sure, because it seems that she is determined to do what she thinks is correct. Talk to a lot of people who have practices that are extremely questionable, that have no evidence in showing to either slow down, decrease the progression of a cancer. Her cancer, unfortunately, because it's at the stage it is at, her odds are just not quite as good, especially since she allowed symptoms to go on for an extended period of time. As I said, I don't think the bleeding was from a menstrual reproductive reason. I think it was maybe linked to her cancer and it just affecting the other organs around her. I've seen a lot of times blood clots in people that I've had to eliminate using catheter type equipment, flushing out literally huge blood clots out of people's bladders. So yeah, that does happen. She talks about haters, obviously. It's probably anybody who objects to the type of cancer treatments that she is electing at this time, because they're not treatments. I think she is being sold a bill of goods, and I think it's just extremely sad. I think she thinks that because she had that large part of that tumor removed that she's somewhat safer, and then she just added a lot of, hocus pocus nonsensory, that complementary nothingness to her healthcare journey. I'm glad that she's eating much healthier. I'm sure she feels better without that part, but the fact that it's gone and traveled into so many lymph nodes is just worrisome, and it's already up to the trachea, which it's just very concerning to be that far distally. I think, as I talked about, she also spoke about, her not seeing Christmas, which obviously is sad. I think it's difficult to give anybody a length of time. I think you do have to tell people to be realistic as to what the expectancy can be, but I don't think you can ever say exactly. I think people can go down very quickly with cancer. And I just think at this time, I'm glad she looks like she's doing well. But I think I am concerned. I know she has another live out where she has mentioned that she has stabilized, but I'm not really sure about that being the case. It may be that it has for the moment, and then suddenly it's just going to get, progressive. Hopefully not. She talks about, obviously, just the sort of traditional evidence-based routes of chemo, radiation, or possibly using radiation and surgery. These are often now thought to be the best way to tackle cancer. They used to just do surgery in the past and not do chemo and or chemo-radiation together. And that meant that a lot of these cancers that people thought were in remission would return within just a short amount of time. And so they found out now that it's just better to go is sort of hardcore. She is young. She would have done well, possibly, with chemotherapy. I don't, like I said, my own family member, she passed away at the age of 34 from stage 4. She did take chemotherapy. I know that her mum and they were looking all at, everybody always looks at things outside of traditional medicine because you just want to see what else is out there, because the other just gives maybe an extension on somebody's life, but never really a cure. And I think people just want answers. They want to know why they've got it. They want to know how to fix it. They want to know why they didn't know better. Why is it once they did feel something that things took so long to get results to? I think there's just a lot of questions. I think it's important then to look at Kubler's and sort of progression through, denial, just depression. There's all the Kubler-Ross, the grief model. Sorry, I'm going back to school. But yeah, going through that. And I think she's still in a lot of denial at this time, and maybe mixed in with some sadness, because I think it's not just as linear. I think it ebbs and flows and goes back and forth through the model. But I don't think she's quite reached acceptance yet. I think she talks about it and she acts very brave about it. But whether or not she's actually really sort of had it really sink into her mind, she's still working and just doing things as if, which is good. But I think, as time goes on, we'll have to see more. I guess I'll react to more on this series. Anyway, that is the end of this. This is Ray. This is Life and Vibe. This is another one of my great reactions where I just don't know where I'm going to start and what am I going to do. But anyway, if you like this type of content, please hit the like, subscribe. I love the comments. I do try to respond back to them, and so I appreciate that. I am trying to also do, like I said, some other vlogs that talk about my own personal journey through the American healthcare system. So instead of being in a situation and finding yourself like Jessie Lee Ward, lost, trying to get scans, not having people to turn to, not getting things escalating as she would have liked, getting conned out of money from insidious biohacking companies, then I would suggest that you take a look at some of my vlogs. And so that would be also appreciated by me, because I would like to get the word out about how to do good preventative healthcare, so that people can age healthfully and not get conned out of their hard-earned money in the process, by supplement companies and, you know, shady MLM practices. So anyway, I hope everyone enjoys this. Once again, thank you so much for just tuning in. Take care and talk to you later. Bye.